20 minutes for the hour. Joining us now from thenation.com, herself fresh from McAllen, Texas, I believe, Zoe Carpenter. Zoe, you were in McAllen, right?
I was in McAllen and Brownsville.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. A bit, I don't know, a bit struck by what I saw down in Texas, that's for sure.
Well, tell us then what you saw up close.
Well, I was first in a Border Patrol processing facility in McAllen. So just for some context, it's one of the busiest parts of the U.S.-Mexico border in terms of the number of people crossing in the McAllen area in the Rio Grande Valley. And so that particular processing center is where many, if not most, of the people who are apprehended by the Border Patrol in that region get sent initially. And so that includes families with children, it includes adults traveling alone, and it includes children traveling alone. And that facility is really the epicenter of where the separations are happening because it's such a large facility. That's the point where if parents are going to be criminally charged, they're sent off, to the court system and into ICE custody, and their children, meanwhile, are taken and placed into HHS custody. And the facility itself is quite sparse, nicknamed the dog kennel by some people, and unfortunately, that's a pretty accurate description of how it feels to be inside the facility.
So, and I'm looking at a picture that you posted there. People sleeping on green mats with silver mylar blankets. At what point does the separation occur? On the spot when they're first taken, or at the facility itself?
Well, there's a bit of confusion about that. Border Patrol says that they do not separate families in the fields, but we have seen some reports of that happening. At this particular facility, my understanding from talking with the agents is that the separation generally happens when parents are being processed out of the facility. So they may be in the facility for a while with their children, and we did see the family areas where women and their children or men and their children are held. So it seems that most of the separations are taking place when they're getting ready to leave the processing facility and go on to the next step. And that's when, if they're going to charge the parents with criminal illegal entry, which the Trump administration is trying to charge 100% of people that they apprehend with that charge, at that point they would be automatically separated from their children.
Now I'm curious, if one is charged with criminal illegal entry and found guilty, what happens then? Are you just deported, or are you incarcerated here in America?
What's happening mostly is the judges are sentencing people to time served. So essentially, they go before the court, and usually people are being sentenced in batches, in groups, because the federal court system is so overloaded by this new influx of people. So we could have situations, and the Border Patrol confirmed this, you could have a situation where a parent is separated from its child, goes to court, is sentenced to time served, and by the time they get back to the facility, their child has actually been taken somewhere else by HHS.
Now, as far as the children are concerned, Zoe Carpenter with us, folks, quarter before the hour, thenation.com. As far as the children being taken somewhere else, what's their next stop after the facility in the HHS facility, let's say at a place like McAllen? They go to this HHS facility. What happens when they leave there? Where do they go?
Well, so just to clarify, the McAllen facility is a Border Patrol facility. So after they leave there, then they go generally to what the administration calls a shelter, a children's shelter, that are run, generally speaking, by nonprofit groups. So I shadowed a group of Democratic members of Congress who visited a children's shelter run by Southwest Key in Brownsville, the Casa Padre shelter. And that holds hundreds of mostly teenage boys. There are many questions right now about where the youngest children, the babies and the toddlers, are being held. And the AP has a new report that there are at least 3 facilities that are designated for those very young children.
Yeah. I think one of them, you mentioned Casa Padre. I think one of them is Casa Presidente. There's
also run by that same group, Southwest Key.
Yeah. Yeah. 866-99 series 866-997-4747. Now, is there any difference between what you saw in McAllen versus what you saw in Brownsville, Zoe?
Well, in Brownsville, I wasn't allowed to access the children's shelter. So what I know about that facility just comes from what the Democratic lawmakers said and what some other reports about that facility have said. Um, there are differences in the sense that the Brownsville facility is run by a group that's licensed to provide child care in the state of Texas. The Border Patrol facility, because it's set up as a temporary holding center, people aren't supposed to stay very long. It has many fewer services for the children. So the children that are held there are essentially in large chain link cages or pens, and they have access to very basic amenities such as food and water and showers and things of that nature, but they don't have toys, books, or anything to entertain them. And when I was there were about 200 unaccompanied children. In that group, including children who'd crossed the border unaccompanied and children who'd been separated since coming to the U.S. And they only had 4 social workers on site for those 200 children.
Wow. So how deep were you able to get into these facilities? Did they let you inside at all?
Yeah, so the McAllen Center, I was inside. There was a small group of reporters that was allowed in. I would just say that access and transparency is a big problem here. We had a brief tour. I would estimate it was about 20 minutes inside the facility, and we weren't allowed to interview any of the detainees. And as I mentioned earlier, is very little transparency about where other facilities are located, and certainly most members of the press and members of Congress, Democrats at least, have not had access to those facilities.
Zoe, what is Zoe Carpenter with us, folks, with thenation.com. What is your understanding, or if you could help explain to our audience, is there any even shaky ground or fuzzy ground that Trump can stand on when he says this was an Obama administration policy and or a Democratic policy that he's upholding? I can't seem to find the evidence that that's true.
No, that's not true. I think what they're doing is trying to conflate the two issues of truly unaccompanied children, which are children that cross the border without parents. We did see a large number of those children coming to the U.S. under the Obama administration. And so some of these children's shelters that are now being used were set up then because, these children were coming without parents, and the administration needed to find sponsors for them, needed to find their relatives. But the separation of families once they get to the U.S., that is completely new, especially at this scale. And there's nothing compelling the Trump administration to do that. They do not have to charge all of these parents with criminal entry. That's a choice that's being made. And so essentially we're just hearing lie after lie from the administration.
Yeah. Zoe Carpenter, folks, has been in Texas. How long are you down there, Zoe?
I was just down there for a couple of days, a very last-minute trip once we found out that there was this, there would be some access to the facility, and I was shadowing, as I said, this group of Democratic lawmakers who were doing a fact-finding mission around the region.
Is McAllen, tell us a bit more about the inside. Is it clean?
Yeah, it's clean, and as I said, sort of sparse. It feels clinical and
Okay.
almost frighteningly quiet. You have more than 1,000 people there, and I think the feeling I would describe as one of sort of anticipation and nervousness as people wait to find out where they'll be taken next. But there are signs that facility, even though it is clean, it's still bearing a lot of pressure from the new, the extra work because of all these prosecutions. So many people have to have their paperwork processed remotely via computers by Border Patrol agents in other cities because they simply don't have the capacity at this facility to process all the paperwork.
Wow. It's sparse. Just from the images I'm looking at, people are just spread out. It looks like a massive place, and they don't have like individual cubicles. They're just kind of all spread out on the floor, right?
Yes, we did walk by one individual cell sort of a cinder block cell with a window, and there was a above it that's do not place in cell 18, or do not use this cell, essentially. And the Border Patrol agent who was giving us a tour said, "Oh, there's no one in there. You don't need to look inside." But when we looked inside, there was a woman, and she was leaning against the wall and had her face in her arms and looked rather distraught. And so it was a very strange moment. The Border Patrol agent couldn't explain why the cell was being used, and he quickly moved us along and couldn't answer any questions about it. So that was another thing that suggested that, the capacity of this facility is being strained, and there are things going on, miscommunications between agents, that sort of thing.
Right. Zoe Carpenter, the Nation. I know you're going to stay on this story, Zoe. What's next in terms of your coverage?
Well, I'm really interested in this question of what is the process for reuniting these children and parents after they've been separated. And so far, the indications are that there is no process. And so I think for me, following up on the stories of what happens to these children, where are they? Because we really don't know where many of these facilities are, and making sure and trying to find out what can we do to get them reunited with their parents is a priority for me.
Indeed. And as you said, the parents could be processed and the children may have already been shipped off somewhere else. Have you seen any hint whatsoever that they have any kind of process? I mean, you literally had to find out what it is. Are you saying up to this point you've seen no hint of a process for reunification?
Yeah, and the administration has not outlined any process to the media. So far, the best that I can tell is that individual caseworkers within, HHS and the people who are at the children's shelter, and then the agents who are working with the parents in ICE custody, it's sort of dependent on them to take the initiative and try to figure this out. So if you have an excellent case manager who is committed to trying to reunite you with your child, you might have a better chance of doing that, and maybe they'll figure it out so they can get your child to you at the time that you're deported. If your case manager is not interested in helping you, or their workload is too big, you might be out of luck and get deported without your child. And so I think we're really seeing a system where nothing is standardized, and there's a good chance, according to former officials who worked within ICE and HHS, that some of these children may never be reunited with their parents.
This is so unbelievable.
It's horrible.
It is. Zoe Carpenter, folks with The Nation. Follow her at thenation.com. Also follow her on Twitter at Zoe S. Carpenter. Zoe, do keep us posted on what you learn. We'll have you back, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy your day. 866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-4748. Beverly's in New Mexico. Beverly, God bless you. Good morning. Get ready for impeachment.
Good morning, Mark.
Hey.
I just had to call because that comment that Les made, and let me tell you, his name is very appropriate because you know what? I think less of you. That pissed me off. We got enough of you, When it was his people, let me tell you, I'm a full-blooded Native American, and his people tried to come here and exterminate my people. But guess what? We're still here, Les, and that's going to keep going on.
Yeah.
That just really pissed me off, Like, how dare he say something like that? That is a despicable human to say that. No, he's not even human, These people that are coming here trying to seek asylum, they're human beings. They have a soul. They have feelings. And these white people, they just don't even see that, It just pisses me off. And it's just making me so emotional because that's the state that we're in right now. And it's a scary, scary time.
Well, and the reason it affects you the way it affects you, Beverly, and affects me the way it affects me and affects others the way it affects them, because it's a part of our history where we were separated from our own families.
Yes, that's true.
And
they came here.
Come on.
They killed us. They took our land. They separated our kids from their parents, put them in boarding schools. They broke treaties. That's the history of them. That's what they do.
Yeah. You're right.
That just really, really pisses me off. And this is the state that we're in right now in America, and I can't believe it. You know?
None of us can. Thank you, Beverly.
Sad. It's just sad, and I'm just like so sick and tired of it, you know? Basically, they're so dumb, these white people. I have to say that because, you know, people see me, they don't know what I am. They don't know if I'm a Hispanic. They don't know if I'm Asian. They don't know. They don't realize they have a full-blooded Native American standing in front of them. They're so dumb.
Yeah. Thank you, Beverly. Enjoy your day. Folks, if all minds are clear, it has been made plain.